Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a main B bus undervolt.
All right, that was the voice of James Lovell, commander of the commander of the Apollo 13 mission to the moon. He said those words in April 1970 after an explosion wounded his three-man spacecraft. Through the walk on board with his crew and controllers back on Earth, the nation held their collective breath. It was just enough to bring Lovell and his crewmates back to the Earth alive. All right, he died last week at the age of 97. He was one of only 3 astronauts who flew to the moon twice, but only one of a trio to ever walk on the moon's surface. Here now is Muriel Borowitz, the associate professor at Georgia Tech with the extensive experience in space and policy and international affairs. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's now we talk about this mission, right? This 4 space missions and one of the NASA's most experienced space travelers. But what kind of astronaut was he? Would you say?
Yes, I mean, Jim Lovell was a Gemini astronaut and then an Apollo astronaut, so he was one of these original sort of explorers, people willing to, take risks to really push the boundaries of what humanity is capable of. And a lot of the stories of him say, he's just a good-natured guy, a good person to work with. And I think, an inspiration to a lot of engineers in particular with that Apollo 13 mission, just so incredible what they were able to do in a crisis.
Yeah, these Apollo missions to the moon in the 60s and 70s were much a part of diplomacy as they were about exploration. But what role did astronauts like Lovell play in the space race?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's very clear when we look back at historical documents that the Apollo program in general was really about a race with the Soviet Union, and it was about demonstrating, what the U.S. system and what democracy was capable of doing. And I think it was, clearly very successful at that. And the astronauts themselves were really seen as sort of ambassadors, not only of the U.S., but of humanity. And so they did a lot of work traveling around the world, meeting with leaders and others in countries all over the place, really helping people all over the world to feel a part of what they were doing with the Apollo program.
Yeah, we touched on Apollo 13, and how was the narrative of that ill-fated mission and Lovell's leadership?
Yeah, so I mean, space, even today, but certainly back in the Apollo era, it's difficult. And there is always the possibility that something's going to go wrong. So they, on the Apollo 13, were going to the moon. They were intending to do a landing. And as they were getting into lunar orbit, they had an issue with one of the oxygen tanks exploding. It meant they wouldn't have enough fuel to actually, do the landing, do the mission as planned. And there wasn't immediately a clear solution to even get them back home to Earth safe. And so it really took some very quick thinking by the crew themselves, as well as NASA engineers on the ground, to kind of figure out, okay, here are the tools we have available to us. It's a very limited number of things that they brought with them to orbit. How can we use this to get a solution and get these people back home safely? And it really is pretty amazing that they were able to succeed and do that.
Muriel Borowitz with Georgia Tech, thanks so much for your insight. Thanks so much for joining us.